Hello, everybody. My name is Dom of XComicReleases.com, associate editor, and today we've got another action-packed filled show, the first of the summer, the first of three, of course, in the summer period. And I am nonetheless joined by my amazing friend over in the Canadian North, and that is none other than the host of the Epic Marvel podcast, Mr. Kurtis Finley. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, and it's always a pleasure to be here on Finest Friday, ready to talk about some comics.
Oh man, we got a lot of good ones to talk about. We got three in particular this upcoming month that you can see on the box down below. But yes, we are happy to be here with you folks. Let's go ahead and say hello to all of our friends in the chat. Ultra Mega Nicola OK says hi all, happy Finest Friday. Happy Finest Friday to you. It is again that time of the month. Batman says, hello, Dom and Curtis. Got my wisdom teeth removed a couple of hours ago. This is the first time today that I know what I'm doing.
Oh, poor guy.
Oh, man. Are you eating ice cream, Batman? I feel like that is the easiest remedy for hurt wisdom teeth. As somebody who got all four of theirs removed, that was the only thing that I could eat, and it always tasted delicious. Probably never tasted more delicious in my life because I literally could not eat anything else. James Abel is always leaking and lurking in the chat. Hello, Jason Carpenter. Good morning to you. Xbox by degrees. It is indeed that time of month again. Good to see you. Part where Comics Reader says, completely blanked on last month's stream, was reading by the river. Which river, if I may ask, Part where Comics Reader? What were you reading? Have you ever been or watched a stream on, near a river, Kurtis?
And what were you reading?
I think it's Curtis's thingamabob blanked. Guys, are you seeing me? Okay. I think did I black out for a second there, Curtis?
No, I think that's me. My internet seems to be unstable.
Uh-oh. That is no bueno. I am just checking in. Seems like just give me a signal, Curtis, if you can hear me and if you can say a couple of things.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes. Internet seems to be in and out. I don't know why.
All right. Well, as long as he's here, that's all that matters, and that is the point of this chat. Hello, Fernando. Good to see you. Partworks Comics Reader says, MacPow tomorrow. Trains booked. Want to get Gotham Central signed by Lark. We should get Gotham Central in a DC file. I have no idea how they do it. Maybe they'd call it, I don't know, GCPD or something. Collect a whole bunch of Gotham City related books. Nonetheless, thank you to James as well for the links shared as always. You got the Epic group. You've also got Curtis's Epic YouTube channel where he does the best surprise live streams every single Monday. Happy to tune into some of them as well. Of course, you can check out comicreleases.com where we do have all the upcoming DC Finest up to next year, and the Patreon just $2. So you guys can not only help us out with the server costs, but it also gives you access to a doable spreadsheets. All right. Hello, Rahul. Hopefully you are doing well as well. End of May might have been Peacemaker, he says he was reading. Did you enjoy them?
Oh, good.
Did you enjoy that part?
Yeah, what were your thoughts on Peacemaker?
Great.
Was that last month that we talked about Peacemaker?
Yeah, that
a couple
was
months ago.
I don't. It was April, I think. Yeah, April.
April. Yeah, okay.
It's been a while. Okay. Finish Barry Libowitz. Good morning to you. Finished my Batgirl DC Finest in a day and a half. My favorite of the 5 I've read so far.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Oh my goodness. It is so much fun, and it is so incredibly well done. I love Cassandra Cain. God bless her soul. One of my favorite characters ever. Hello, Logan. I hope you're doing well as well. And I think, if I may, do you just want to get into the meat and things of it, Curtis?
I mean, I'm ready to go when you are.
All right, so that means it is time to show off the first of these books. Actually, one more quick comment. Gordon of Gotham, Gordon's Law, Bullock's Law, maybe Officer Down, Gotham Central. Yeah, I would agree. I think that there is a market for GCPD centric or James Gordon centric books. I do think that the that specific supporting cast of Batman characters have their own leeway to get their own. I don't know. We'll just have
Definitely
to see.
strong enough. Now, would you also include some of the seminal work like Batman the Killing Joke
Mm-hmm.
could go in
Mm-hmm.
there
Mm-hmm.
because of its because of its draw with Commissioner Gordon. Same with Year One. I mean, that one's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much a got that's a Jim Gordon story,
It
really, more
is.
even more so than a Batman one. So it could go in there too.
I would agree with that. But hey, I think, yeah, agree with that, and I think there is a market for Jim Gordon related content. Peacemaker was really bitty. I think those will read so much better in a Checkmate collection than chopped up with Peacemaker bits.
Yeah.
I think you and I think we all agreed on that when we talked about it a couple of months ago. All right. Nonetheless, we have books to talk about. Three books specific indeed. And the first one that we are going to fade in specifically with all of this is none other than Superman Kryptonite Nevermore, which caps off the Silver Age and heads us into the Bronze Age of DC, and specifically the Bronze Age of Superman comics. This is a collection that has included Action Comics 393 to 406 and Superman 233 to 238 and 240 to 246. For those who might be wondering, 239 is a reprint of Action Comics 267 and 268, along with Superman 127 and 168. So that is the reason to why those were not included in here. But man, I was not expecting to have as much fun as I did, but this was another one of those that snuck up behind my back. A lot of these all these Superman stories I've never read before. I mean, I've heard about Kryptonite Nevermore. I've heard about all of the Carrie Bates stories that were in here, but I've never actually physically delved into this until this DC Finest in particular came out. But the tone is so much different, I would argue, than the Silver Age Superman material, even the Golden Age material that we've been reading, Curtis, where you see that this Superman, there's a lot more focus on Clark because we're trying to go away from the hokiness of it all. Like, there is still some charm to it, but I would argue that I think the strength of a lot of these stories comes from, can we do something to Superman so it showcases more of his character versus the soap operas that we're used to seeing. But anyways, what did you think of this specific collection?
Um, so I'll right off the bat, I just want to say that even though they skipped issue 239, they did include the cover of it because that's still new material. So that's still there, even though it's not indicated on the back. Um, yeah, this is a very interesting book, and it's really interesting for those who just don't know much about DC history or um, want a good book that shows the difference between the Silver Age and the Bronze Age, because this book has both. And it's very interesting to see. A lot of this is stuff that has never been collected, I believe, never been collected before or never been collected in color before.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Superman Kryptonite Nevermore story that has been released before in a trade, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe some issues, random issues here or there. But for the most part, this is stuff that hasn't been seen for a long time. And to get it all in one collection is really neat. So there are two distinct parts of this book. There are the Superman issues, and they are the Action Comics issues. And I think that's where you get to see a really good dichotomy, a really good representation of both Silver Age and Bronze Age. The Action Comics issues
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are written by Leo
Mm-hmm.
Dorfman. Is that right?
Yes.
And then the Superman ones are the ones written by Dennis O'Neil. And Denny O'Neil was a game changer for comics in the Bronze Age. He worked so hard in injecting new life and stuff into this stuff and into the work he was doing at Marvel. And so I think, and now you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there are some major players, and I'm sure the editors are also big players here. But I think Denny O'Neil is one of those people who really helped usher in the Bronze Age in general. And you can see his issues of Superman here are very different than how Leo Dorfman was doing Action Comics at the same time. Because Dorfman is a holdover from the Silver Age. And so the Action Comics issues really feel Silver Age-ish throughout this book. Anytime that we flip back to Action Comics, it's like, okay, this is definitely a more Silver Age kind of a story. And then you get to the Superman ones. It's like, oh yeah, this is interesting to
Mhm.
see. The stakes are higher. There's continuing stories, more focus on Superman and his humanity rather than just being kind of a superhero flying through the air or whatever. And yeah, so really interesting. I thought it was a really neat comparison.
No, it was definitely. And when I did my research just to see, like, because I'm familiar with Dennis O'Neil and Batman, but much less so with Dennis O'Neil and Superman. Not the tipping point, but something that I found really interesting was that Julius Schwartz, who we talked about heavily on both The Flash and Green Lantern, when he got the Superman editor job, he wanted Dennis O'Neil to write Superman and would not let go of that until Dennis O'Neil said, yes, could you do a Superman story? So that is how he came up with the concept of, can we make Clark immune to kryptonite in a way so that we can find other weaknesses and holes in his superheroism so that we can showcase a little bit more of the humanity that you talked about. And even if it isn't particularly like my favorite Superman story, I really, really appreciate the directness of just how O'Neill figures a way out to strip away this like myth and candor of Clark being like we can use kryptonite as sort of like a weakness for him, or he can't be beat by anything because he's that strong. And I really do think that this was the perfect way to transition him out of the soap opera bits of it into, oh wait, this is somebody that we can write more stories of that isn't just related to will he, won't he date Lois Lane or go on this random adventure. And I
Yeah.
find that really, really strong and really, really admirable too on O'Neill's part. And I do think that this is, I mean, the Kryptonite Nevermore story, I think, is the highlight of this book for all the reasons you mentioned as well, Curtis.
Yeah, the other really remarkable thing about this book is that Kurt Swan draws, I think, almost every issue
Mm-hmm.
in this,
Yeah.
both titles. Like the guy is just a workhorse because he was doing two monthly books and probably putting a ton of like I don't know, sometimes like Sal Buscema
Mm-hmm.
when he's on multiple books, he's just doing breakdowns for a lot of them. And I don't know if that's the case here, that Kurt Swan was doing breakdowns and he is letting the his inkers pick up more of the slack. Because I think Murphy Anderson is one of his inkers.
Yeah.
Let me check here on Action Comics. And then who is it on Superman here? Well, Murphy Anderson on
Mm-hmm.
that too. So the both of them are doing two books a month. That's ridiculous.
It is.
Absolutely, and it all looks great from start to finish. It doesn't look like they're rushed. They take their time with all of their layouts, buildings, backgrounds, expressions. None of it is sacrificed.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys are really, really good.
I completely agree. And one thing I want to note too about the Kurt Swan of it all in this book is that you can see the lines just getting a little bit more rougher as the book continues along. Versus like the Kurt Swan that we've seen and have been used to seeing for all the Silver Age DC Finest collections that we have. So not only I think is it just a transition in terms of the tone of a lot of these books, but I do think you get to see like we're definitely going towards a different period now where everything is gonna be a little more detailed, a little bit more rough on the edges, as opposed to what we have before. And I think that in that specific context, like you're getting the best of both worlds in one. So not only like I said, you're getting a difference in the tone, writing wise, but artistically, you're also getting something different. So I mean, that's why I say I don't have any negative things I think to say about the art. I love Curt Swan. God bless him, and it's a really really good looking Superman book.
It sure is. Yeah. I would have liked to see a little bit more returning supervillains in this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, he's just finding kind of one-offs or random aliens or whatever, or circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to see some of his normal rogues gallery in here.
Mm-hmm. Because we don't get to see a lot of them, right? I mean, some of them are like complete one-offs or brand new characters that we haven't often seen before. Like, Houdini shows up in the first issue. I'm like, I don't really care about Houdini, but sure, we'll go along with that.
And of course, we get gorillas
Mm-hmm.
in here. That was a good story. I like that one. For the 400th issue of Action Comics.
Mm-hmm. I really there was something specific in this one. There was a weird story where Clark has to solve one of the like he's on a carriage with Lois, and they're pushed off to the side of the road, and Superman like can't save like whoever's like driving along the road because he can't reveal his identity, so he has to like go behind the scenes as Clark Kent um driving against the road rager. And I think stories like that where you get to see Clark a lot more than Superman, I think is what makes this book for me in particular, because sometimes we only get to see like the lovey-dovey side of Clark Kent, especially in a lot of those Lois Lane Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane books. But here, I mean, it's full on blast. Like we get to see Clark just stripped down to, hey, he's a reporter. He's got other things to do than just being the guy who has the S symbol and flies all the time. And you get to see that in a lot of these stories. It's not just the one off. So I can't. Yeah, I have no bad things to. I don't know if I have any bad things to say about. I think I just really like this Bronze Age Superman book.
Yeah, I think you definitely see the shift here. The Silver Age definitely had a formula. There'd always be an opening sequence with Clark in the real world, um, figuring out what the problem of the day is, and you quickly have to switch over to Superman, and of course he's the star of the book, so he's going to take up the story, and then maybe there's a couple of panels at the end where he's back as Clark and wrapping up with a little joke or something like that. But yeah, you wouldn't find, and I'm saying this having not read very much of the Silver Age of Superman at all, but I don't know that you'd find a whole story that is solely focused on Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Like he isn't Superman at all, unless it's like Superman's lost his powers, and so he has to be Clark Kent forever or whatever. That's a different story, but a lot of these ones we find the same formula in these Action Comics ones, where it's like something Superman's acting out of character. That seems to be a go-to for Silver Age. Superman is acting out of character, or any hero's acting out of character, and by the end, we either figure out, because there's no real clues given throughout the story, we either figure out that he was acting that way because he was trying to uncover some devious plot, or there was a weird device that was altering his brain chemistry, and there's no real explanation for that. It's just like, oh, this random thing explains his weird behavior through this issue. We get that, especially in these first few issues, and then it starts to change a little bit more as we get further on through the book.
It definitely,
So
definitely.
yeah, I would love to see the follow-up to this volume, and maybe something a little bit closer to the 80s or in the 80s to see how this book progressed even more throughout the years.
Yes, and I hope at some point we do get one of those DC finest collecting whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow to sort of cap off this particular era of Superman. And then even getting into the post-crisis stuff with all of the John Byrne relaunches of the title and getting into the Triangle years. I think these are the sweet points of Superman that DC just hasn't hit yet. But I do find this collection really cool that we finally get a chance to, hey, say like we were going to read both the Action and Superman lines at this time, see just how different it was from the previous era, and get to see some stellar creators here as well. I found one thing particularly interesting about this book. I don't know if you noticed, Kurtis, but sometimes at the end of the, especially on in the earlier issues, because it was obviously in the early '70s, there was a tagline at the end that said "Kirby is coming" with a big exclamation point. I don't know if you
Oh
know that,
yeah,
but I told
right.
myself like, man, I forgot like how big a deal it was, right? To have like pretty much the god of all of those amazing Marvel titles and 60 Silver Age Marvel over to DC to do his own technically creator own stuff. And I just thought, man, like
Yeah,
this is a
yeah.
great historical nugget to place in.
They were so proud of being able to steal Kirby away from Marvel. And so yeah, they were making a big deal about it for sure.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I want to say one quick last thing on this book. There was a story that I thought was hilarious. It's one where Clark is like this old, like this much way older guy. He's in a wheelchair. He's
That
got
story was great.
yeah, and he's wearing a sign that says like "Help the needy," like and he's asking people for money. Like Jimmy comes in, he's like, I'll help you out." And we still find out like is the real Clark there? Is the person who wants to keep on saving people there? But obviously like he's strapped in with it to the wheelchair. And yeah, you just have the question of, is this Clark Kent going to be unselfish and put his neediness aside, or is he going to still sort of prod around but I thought that story was really good. That two-parter essentially. Um, but anyways, that is those are all of my thoughts on the Kryptonite Nevermore trade paperback. A definite yes, I think, on me for my part. I think a yes to Kurt or from Kurtis too. So let's go ahead and talk to the chat. Let's see. Curious on. Let me see if I can load. There we go. Curious on the quality of these issues. Never read this era. Phil, I hope you're doing well. Let's see if the thing is the thing working. All right, it is. How are you doing, Phil? Hope you are doing well. And partly,
To see Bill
indeed, partly related to this,
and Logan too.
we had a Superman Evergreen stream yesterday with me and 8 other folks, or 7 other, I think it was. Anyways, it was a big presentation. Went on for 4 hours. The usual Evergreen standards. But man, Jess was actually the one who pulled in this or the Kryptonite Nevermore 5-issue storyline, and I was a definite yes to it. But I think some people, because I hadn't read it before, said, yeah, we couldn't vote for it. And I think Lars also said no because he thought that there were better other stories. But nonetheless, I am very happy that all my picks made. Actually, Logan, I will say this was the one time where I actually would have been fine if my last pick hadn't made it. But yes, there is a Superman box coming out. I want to lay one real quick thing to it if I can head over. On the 21st of August, there is a Superman trade paperback box set that has 6 trade paperbacks, which has All-Star Superman, Kingdom Come, Superman for All Seasons, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Up in the Sky, and the latest volume, or first volume, I should say, of Joshua Williamson's Superman.
Wow, that's a good set.
It's a pretty good set. There are great stories in there. But yes, it's coming out on the 3rd week of August, so be on the lookout for that. I know that some people were like, "Wait, there's a box." Yeah, there is a box set. It was supposed to come out in 2 weeks from now, but they pushed it back to August. But if you are interested in Superman, I would definitely recommend a lot of those books if you are a first-time reader. Let's see. Only Superman Nevermore made. Yeah, I hope. I wish it did, but it's okay. We're talking about it now. um, yes. So Ultra Mega Nicholas says that they agree with the our thoughts on this specific volume, and they also say it's an interesting, very interesting to see an evolution in under 600 pages. You really do get to you get to feel a Silver Age before becoming Bronze Age in your eyes, before your eyes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is indeed. Jeff, hello, Dom and Kurtis. Hello back to you. Love that Swanderson art. These finest books have some really great art restoration.
Yeah, thanks. Good to hear from you, Jeff.
Good indeed. Batman says, I feel like Dennis O'Neil was one of the most influential writers in terms of covering domestic issues like racism and corruption in comics and making it feel real.
Yeah, his work in Marvel, I'm definitely more familiar with Denny O'Neil's stuff at Marvel than at DC, and his Iron Man run, where he deals with Tony Stark's alcoholism, was really good. And even I'd say even better than the Demon of the in the Bottle stuff.
I really liked the way that he wrote Rhodey in his run too. I think that tends to get glossed over a bit, but it is one of my favorite Iron Man runs because of the Rhodey bits and like you mentioned with him dealing with his depression and alcoholism. Those early Silver Age or early action comics are so Silver Age it makes the contrast with O'Neill's Superman unavoidable. Reading both of these at the same time must have caused some whiplash for readers.
It causes some whiplash just reading this book as well because we're flipping back and forth between those. Yeah, and that's part of the charm of this. I think you could either separate the two and have two very distinct books, but having them together is a neat piece of history.
I agree. And also, they mentioned that this has to be the most artistically consistent, finest volume to date. Because yeah, it's just Swan Anderson and like Ross Andrew for like one or two issues. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think the only one you could say would be more consistent would be like the first Superman volume where it's all Shuster and Siegel.
Mm-hmm. Although we do have another volume that to talk about where there is some bizarre art, but that's later for the stream. I have thoughts on that. Partworks Comic Reader says, been forcing myself through the Superboy volume this week. Not loving it as a big chunk of the repeated tropes, even if the individual stories are mostly fun.
Yep. Yep, I would agree. I mean, that's the case with a lot of the Silver Age materials that you'll have to break it up into different different reading chunks because it is fairly repetitive.
Just as
Although I
a
like
yeah.
Superboy more than Supergirl, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness, there were a quite a few demon devil type stories in this era of Superman. Even the sand like Superman looks scary at times. Wasn't DC afraid the shift in tone would scare away young readers?
I mean, you'd have to ask Julie Schwartz about that, I guess. A little too late for that, unfortunately.
Indeed.
But I think that we're seeing a maturing of the comic industry at this point in general. A lot of the fan base is just growing older, and so they're not afraid now to shift to being a little bit older to follow that fan base. Historically, this would be a comics worth thing where as a kid you'd buy them and you toss them, whatever. It's like, and then you'd grow out of comics, quote unquote, grow out of comics. But once we hit the 70s and conventions are starting to be a thing and the direct market is coming into existence, or not the direct market, but the comic shops are coming into existence, uh, that's when you start to see fans starting to hold on to comics longer in life than they typically would. And so, yeah, the tone is shifting because the fan base isn't stagnant anymore. It's growing.
Mhm.
And so I think that this shows that they are dealing with those bigger, more mature issues just in general.
Yes, indeed. And it also reminds me, I was watching a 30-minute documentary on the Dark Knight Returns, and Kyle Baker, who was an artist on Plastic Man, said that he had drawn a pretty like kid, like a super cute kid cover, or like a something related to the Dark Knight Returns, and when he said that when he saw the fan base and the people who were picking it up, he realized, wait, I'm not drawing for 4 or 5 year olds or that younger age anymore. He said that at that point it was like I needed to shift my art completely because everybody had seemingly grown up and comics are becoming more for just than the adolescents. And I find that really interesting. But I don't think that I think that this one of these books, anyways, is a silent indicator of like there are going to be more people reading these now because more and different people are reading these books. So that's my takeaway from it. Next up we have Logan. Kurtis, I've never fully understood what breakdowns are. Is it the penciler does the basic art like sketches or something, and then another artist or the inker fleshes it out?
Right. Okay, so pencilers can either put a little bit of detail into it or they can put a lot of detail into it. If you have someone like Jim Lee and you see any of his pencils, that is full pencil art. Like that's a penciler being a penciler to the finest. He is filling in every single little crosshatch and detail. If you're on breakdowns, you're basically just giving the shapes, the basic shapes of the figures and laying out the panel arrangements and the flow of action. And that's what Sal Buscema did a lot because Sal Buscema is a good storyteller. This is the same with Ron Frenz. He does this a lot because Ron Frenz is a really good sequential storyteller. And so they hire them because they know that they'll take the script and interpret it in a very accurate and readable way, and they'll do it fast because they are crunched on deadlines or whatever. So people like Friends and people like Buscema will just do that because they're put on multiple books a month because they just need good storytellers on a bunch of different titles. And then you'll give a strong inker like Joe Sinnott, who can take that breakdown, the very basic human form, and render them completely. And that kind of team works really, really well together. Not all inkers can work on breakdowns. Only the like really strong inkers that have a good background in illustration themselves, I think, can fully take on breakdown art.
Thank you for the explanation, Curtis. Yeah, no, it's I do find it interesting that like some creators decide to just give the overlays of something and then somebody else finishes it. One in particular that I hope DC actually makes a finest event line of is 52. Because that was a 52 issue story, but Keith Giffen did the breakdowns for every single issue. But you could tell that it was, it's like whether it's just storyboarding or just like giving the flat out like, hey, this is what's happening in this particular page or panel. But somebody else is going to be doing it, finishing it off for him. But nonetheless,
that title was released weekly. So there was no way that Keith Giffen could do any more than breakdowns because he had to get one book out a week. And then he'd hand it over. And they were doing this way, way in advance, right? So then they'd have a team of inkers for every single week or whatever so that they could keep on their schedule. But yeah, the fact that he was able to break down all of those issues meant that there was a very consistent reading, very consistent style of reading throughout the whole thing.
For sure, indeed. And yeah, the part works common reader. Oh, let's see. How much with a lot of Silver Age material, particularly how much of DC Silver Age material a little goes a long way. And yes, Xbox by degrees. Do not forget, guys, to hit that like button while you are here so that YouTube and everybody else knows that these books exist and that they are great and that you should pick them up. Let's see. But yes, my previous comments was specifically about Dennis O'Neil's work on Green Lantern and the question.
Without a doubt, for sure. Yeah, he is great at tackling those specific issues within those books, for sure.
I would agree with that. Let's see. Yeah, and then they put they put Jack Kirby on Jimmy Olsen. We got some other cool books too, though. Like I would love a Commandi DC Finest. However, they decide to put it that way. New Gods, as we mentioned earlier, I think that would be a great thing to put in with those Jimmy Olsen books. No, so I would love to see a old '70s Kirby in DC Finest. Carmen Infantino had to fight DC to get Kirby. Jack was still disliked by a bunch of people there for the way that he left the company in the late 50s. But hey, we got him,
Ah,
right? That's,
interesting.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Johnny, good morning to you. We do these finest streams every single last Friday of the month to recap all of the ones that came out, have our thoughts in it, chat with you guys who are live, and obviously the replay is going to be up on YouTube. So if you missed the stream, it's still up here for preservation from the internet. Couple more, and we will move on. This was the time when the Comics Code Authority was relaxed. Both Marvel and DC also began to experiment with darker themes.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point too. I forgot about that. Yeah, and that's when we get to see a lot of books like Tomb of Dracula, and Werewolf by Night and that kind of stuff start to crop up a little bit more too.
Oh, for sure. And one thing that we definitely forgot to mention, but Nick, thank you for mentioning it. I think I read Kryptonite and Nevermore faster than any other DC Finest so far. Really enjoyable. And that is one thing that I really appreciate about a lot of these Bronze Age books. They are quicker to read than I would argue, more than the Silver Age and definitely the Golden Age books.
Oh, yeah.
My opinion, Kirby's pencils were also insane. I had no idea,
Yes.
like just how like the guy was doing like 4 or 5 different books at the time, but I suppose that is one of the qualities that makes him a legend in every single one of our books.
Yeah, and he wasn't skimping. Like he was doing full pencils on full 4 books during that New Gods era. Like that was just nuts. If you ever get to see his original art, the original pencils for any of that stuff before it's inked, like he's filling it all in. He was a truly a legend.
Oh, I completely agree. And Logan says, thank you for the detailed explanation. And there's one of
No
my
problem.
best, yeah, there's one of my actual best buds in the world who lives only a couple minutes away from me. Hope you're doing well too, Isaiah. Yeah, it's even over here in Finland. And speaking of Catwoman, as Ultra Mega Nicholas says, read the Catwoman books the fastest. I can't help but agree with that assessment because this Catwoman book in particular is the second book from the line of a whole host of, or two in a small host of Catwoman books that we've gotten so far. This is Vengeance and Vindication, which is the second volume of post-crisis DC Finest Catwoman, collecting issues 0, 13 through 32, along with annual number 2, the crossover with Shadow of the Bat, issue 43 to 44, and a story from Showcase 95 to issue 4. Like I mentioned, this is Jim Balent Catwoman, and if you are looking for the continuation of it, this is going to contain all of her stories in this as well. This is mostly written by Chuck Dixon, but we do have a couple of stories that are written by Doug Mensch, Alan Grant. Joe Duffy takes on the first of these issues. What's the last name of... There's a Deborah in this book that I just keep forgetting the name to, but she also writes a couple of issues in here. But you also have art here by Barry Kitson, which I want to get to at some point. But I think if you are looking for more of the same as you got in the latter half of Catwoman, you will be getting that in this, although we do have a Night's End tie-in, or aftermath, I should say, dealing with the after effects of that event and getting to see what Selina has been up to. There are many heists in this book. There are time capers. There are people that are waiting to hire Selina to do whatever it is they need to do, and in return, she get a whole host of money. Sometimes it's about stealing something pure and precious, and sometimes you will get some really cool special guests that appear. Tim Drake Robin, which Chuck Dixon was writing around the same time as this book, also pops up. So you are getting a whole host of a lot of different one-offs, two-offs, four-offs in the specific collected edition. Kurtis, what did you think of this book?
I have to say that I like the first volume of this better. I found this one to be a fairly inconsistent book. And the first one had some inconsistencies too, because it was a collection of different minis or whatever. But as far as the actual like Catwoman series was concerned, those first issues by Joe Duffy are a lot of fun. She only does a couple of issues of this book and then hands it over to Chuck Dixon. She moves on to whatever else, I don't know. But um, and while I like Chuck Dixon, most of the time I found that some of these were inconsistent. The first story he does in here is a multi-part story. What is it called? Cat File?
It's the one with the wedding,
And
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it feels like, and I can't say that this is the actual case. It feels like he had written this story for a different purpose, maybe a standalone miniseries or something like that, because Catwoman doesn't really do anything in the book.
Hmm.
She's there, but when she appears, she gets caught every single time and is tied up or whatever, observing all of these family members arguing about who gets inheritance or family money or whatever. And then she escapes and goes on to the next place where she gets caught again and then observes the next chapter of these other people and their unfolding drama. And it's like he kind of shoehorned Catwoman into this already existing story. That's what it feels like to me. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it's like, why isn't Catwoman actually like doing anything these four issues? So anyway, that was the start of this book, and I was like, okay, um, not as keen to that. But then we get to the year one annual,
Hmm.
and I really liked it. It was written by Gorfinkel.
Hmm. Who
His name
was
is Jordan B. Gorfinkel.
he's
Um,
also the unrelated, but this is he's also the associate editor on the Catwoman book, and also the inker, I believe, on
okay,
the covers that Jim Balent draws. But go ahead, I apologize.
so here's an interesting story, or interesting book because the artwork, while it is by Jim Balent still, he only does the breakdowns, which we've already talked about what that means. And James A. Hodgkins does the finishes, which means he filled in the rest of the detail and did the inking. And Hodgkins gives Balent's work a completely different feel. And a lot of it feels like he's trying to mimic the style of Mazzucchelli because this is kind of a sequel to Batman Year One. Not a sequel, it's kind of like a parallel storytelling almost, where that focuses on Catwoman. And so a lot of the style you'll see like the thick spot blacks with a lack of cross hatching and such, which is Mazzucchelli's style,
Hmm.
and that's conveyed throughout these pages. It's Jim Balent, but it's not Jim Balent at all. So
Hmm.
it's very interesting to see that style change. One of the things that I found very inconsistent was the artwork throughout this. Um, because it is Jim Balent, but Bob Smith,
Hmm.
I think, doesn't do a very good job of inking this stuff. And I don't know what it is about his work, but I gotta show you a few panels here. Um, this one page in particular, I don't know if you can see this, but it's like up again.
Oh, go ahead and show
You
it,
see my
Curtis.
Okay, I don't know if I'm showing this correctly here. Which page am I trying to show? This one right here. Okay, stiff drawings. He's trying to play golf. That's the most awkward golf stance I've ever seen. And then like down here, this picture right here. What like where is he looking? His neck is craned in a weird direction, and then he like tries to swing this golf club at Selina, and it, again is like another odd, like it's full. This is the Deborah Pomerantz
Yeah.
issues that you were
Hmm.
talking about.
Hmm.
It's just full of weird, awkward poses, and it's like we didn't see this from Jim Balent in the first book at all, and but now all of a sudden we're getting it, and I don't know if if I don't know what's going on with the artwork, but it just takes a significant step downward through this book compared to what we saw in the first book. Bob Smith is the inker, and I don't know if that makes a difference or if Jim Balent was just going rushing through things. But you compare that to the inking job that he got when he was just doing breakdowns in the annual, and it's a world of difference. And then you look at the story, the cat file story before that, um, and the jungle story before that, and it's awesome. Like the artwork is great. So I don't know what changed kind of partway through this book, but that there was just that kind of stuff that stood out to me. Um, I the the Deborah Pomerantz story as well also wasn't that good. Honestly, I wasn't really a fan of this book as much as I liked the first volume, but this one was so inconsistent.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree. I know that people have been dying to get like this whole entire era collected because that I do think like the Jim Balent of it is why a lot of people have a lot of fondness over these stories, even if like they are one-offs. I think there's just something about like the '90s vibe, with the over exotic backgrounds, the wild characters that pop up, some of the weird and trippy design. Like I'm thinking of the Gorilla Grodd story, like where it's an underworld tie-in, and Selina has to go over, to go to Gorilla Grodd's kingdom. Um, and I found some of those bits not quite odd. Um, I'm just surprised that Gorilla Grodd happened to show up in a Catwoman book. But maybe that's just like
right.
me overthinking. Like maybe Flash Rogues shouldn't go over with a Batman, um, with a Batman related character, or a Selina, I should say. It's a very weird mix of a lot of interesting and different, just weird tales, honestly, because you have just so many
It is.
different types of stories all contained into
Yeah.
one. There's no like overtly long theme or narrative. I think like we see with the Cassandra Cain 2000 series that we read earlier, where I'm like, there's a story that we're following, but the bits and pieces that we get that highlight Cassandra's character or her, being closer with one of her supporting casts. I found those like a lot more, stronger in terms of being able to sympathize with those guys, versus this hodgepodge of sometimes wacky and why is Catman crossing over into Catwoman types of stories. And the one story that I want to like highlight on, because you brought up art, in this particular book, I found this particular. I cannot show for the life of me. But this is, if you guys ever get a chance to see the Batman Shadow of the Bat crossover parts, in a four-parter called The Secret of the Universe, where Catman is pretty much called upon to steal one of these weird orbs that will grant somebody cool things. And Catwoman and Batman show up to take him down. It is a crossover between Batman, Shadow of the Bat, and Catwoman. And man, I really, really like Barry Kitson. Barry Kitson's one of my favorite artists usually. A lot of the time I think of titles like The Kingdom with Mark Waid, Hickman Fantastic Four. There's a lot of books that I like him on, but I'm looking at the art in here, and it's all by Kitson, and I'm like, this is not the same, Barry Kitson, clean pencils that I'm used to. They had two separate colorists on this. They had a separator, and then they had somebody different coloring it. If I can just get Pat Garahy, is the colorist, and then Android Images does the separations. But I can't help but notice just how weird his art looked like in this, but very not typical of what I usually expect in kits. I don't know if it was just like him trying to do different stuff in this Batman anthology, or if this was just a creative decision that he just made on his own. But nonetheless, I think if you were a Jim Balent fan, and you want, to collect all of the Jim Balent material, want to continue reading on, I think this might be for you. But I think that there are other Catwoman books that highlight her better than this run, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just like they didn't really know where to go with this title. I remember when Catwoman first got her title, like they were advertising the heck out of it in the 90s in the comics. Like they made a big deal about, hey, Catwoman's finally getting her own series. And then it started off strong. And once Joe Duffy left, it seems like they couldn't hold on to a steady writer or something like that. But Balin stays on for like years to come, right?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't he stays on this for pretty much the entire time until it
Hmm.
gets rebooted
Yep. In 2003, yeah.
in those the Darwin Cook stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of this era still to come, and I think hopefully it'll smooth it out. I don't know the history of this title or where it's going to go from here. I assume it's going to get wrapped up in a lot more Batman crossovers and that kind of stuff as it moves in through the quote unquote triangle era. And but going back to the Barry Kitson stuff, I agree. It's kind of hard to read. It's as if he was using a Sharpie on Post-it notes, and they blew it up really, really big to full comic size. Like that's the kind of muddiness and murkiness we get here. And I'm not exactly sure what the kind of effect was that he was trying to go for, because it's very odd. Um, and I like artists that like to explore different styles in comics, in superhero comics. I love it. Bill Sienkiewicz and such, like, I'm all for it. But when it affects the readability of the comic, you start to have some issues here, and that's what we get. And I think part of that is also the colorist just using a lot of browns and darker colors to color this comic as well, instead of um, using the negative space appropriately to help highlight some of the things that we're supposed to be seeing here.
Yeah, it felt weird to me because I just told myself, like, I'll try to, I have to power through it because I have to tell people, yeah, this is what you should be expecting from issues that had never been previously collected before, right? Like we didn't have these in the Balin Catwoman series, but I just found those a slog to get through because I could not follow, like my eyes had difficulty following it panel to panel. That's how much it got through for me, where I was just like, man, I would have wished, yeah, like don't maybe not try out the thing that you tried to do in here, and just follow it up with something that we're more familiar with. And I hate saying that, but yeah, just because of it, like I thought, like the idea of, hey, like Catman and the Ratcatcher get caught up in the Batman and the Catwoman, their lives. I thought, that was a decent story there. I just found it really hard to go from point A to point B. So there were some parts and bits of it that I thought, like, maybe this is cool. Another thing, I just don't know if I'm the audience for this book, and I hate saying that. But I know that there is. I just don't know that it's personally for me.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we have for thoughts. Let me go ahead and catch up with the chat a little bit, going back to the previous book. Kirby doing dialogue as opera, characters making declarations at each other rather than having conversations.
Yeah, and that makes it a little hard to read sometimes. I think that Kirby left unfiltered without an editor.
Mhm.
Uh, he got a little bit verbose.
Yeah, a lot of words. Yes, indeed. Hayden's Hideout. Hello to you. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. Thankfully, I read Contagion in a trade paperback years ago because the last two issues are sent in here with. That's another thing too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
The last
yeah,
two issues of this book, you get what is it, part 4 and
Mhm.
part 9 or
Parts
something
of,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And it's just and it just jumps from one to the other, and it doesn't give you any sort of context for the issues that are missed in the middle.
Yeah, and that was something that we criticized the previous collection for, because we were
Yep.
also brought into Night's End without any context of whatever was going on. I wish that they would have done something, say like Harley Quinn, where you get the bits and pieces that you need for, information as to what's going on in the wider scope and why she's there, but you don't necessarily get all of the meat of No Man's Land. I don't know if I can say the same thing here. I think if you want the Selina bits, I mean, there's nothing wrongish with that. But it would have been nice to even have like a note saying like, hey, this is what's been going on, and Contagion, please continue on as you see fit. But yeah, Joe Duffy writes the first issue, and or first issue in here in issue 13, and then it's a whole swath of different creators from that point. I was a little annoyed with the first Catwoman book that I had to pull a different book off the shelves for the Batman issues in a 4-part story. And yeah, people are agreeing. First volume is better. Real pity that Joe Duffy could not have stayed on for at least a little while longer.
Yeah, I agree. Seemed like she had a good vision. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I don't either. To some extent, you could also swap the leads on a lot of Dixon's 90 books, and they'd be essentially the same stories. You're not wrong about, honestly, Parker Comics, you're not wrong about a lot of those Batman material. I think the strongest book that he had going on, at least from this is just my opinion, just going on at the time, I really do think his strongest one in this era was Robin, because I think that's where he gets to show a little bit of that personality, and everything that's going on with Tim Drake is sort of like this. Oh, like it's a soap opera beat, and it's somebody who's different. I don't know if I can say the same thing, unfortunately, for characters like Nightwing, Batman. Even like Selina in this book doesn't get a lot of her character highlighted. Like the only times I think we get those highlights are in the year 1 annual, which is annual number 2, which is in this book, and the 0 Hour issues we've already previously read because of the 0 Hour DC Finest events trade paperbacks.
But we didn't get the 0 issue, like issue 0.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't in the 0 Hour epic.
It wasn't,
epics. No. It was only the tie-in issue, whatever that one was.
14.
Catwoman,
14, yeah, right?
Catwoman 14. So yeah, we've read that one before, but the 0 issue was new to this volume, and that one is interesting because it talks about Selina's childhood, which I mean, a lot of those 0 issues are specifically to tell us about this new origin story that they're kind of establishing for this new crisis period or whatever, right? And so they're talking about that and how it relates to the year 1 stuff that was going in Batman. So and I like that. I thought that was a good issue. I can't remember who wrote that one.
Yeah, Doug Mensch wrote the 0 Hour tie-in, and I really do like Doug Mensch as a writer.
Yeah,
so
me too.
That probably explained why I think I enjoyed that one off more than a lot of the other stories.
Yeah,
because you get to see, why does Selina have a fascination with cats, and it's been with her since she was a kid. I would have liked to see a lot more of that instead of like, hey, random bad guy wants Selina to do something. Selina maybe does it or doesn't do it. Shenanigans happen, and then the story ends. But that's what you're getting in the book. Jim Balent has been to the Rob Liefeld School of Art. He draws feet though, so at least he's got something there. Rosie0216, good to see you. Happy you're here. So glad to be one to hear one of these live. Thanks for the content. Love the show. I love you being here as well. Thank you. James Moore 1278 says bought the first Catwoman Finest for early stuff, and Joe Duffy thought Balent was fairly restrained. I skipped this one. Man, not a fan of the Balent. I do get it, because it does get. I think, you know what, Kurtis? I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it with as PG as possible. I think that some of the facial expressions that you were talking about earlier, right, where it's like stiff or like they're awkward, I think he sacrificed some of those to put more effort into different parts of the art. I think that's the best way that I can say it, and that's all I will keep it at. Good evening to you, Munin. Hopefully you are doing well. And it seems like Ultra Mega Niccolo K says yes, agreed on the Shadow of the Bat issues were difficult to read due to the art. I assume the problem was the color separation, not Kitson. It might have been Android Images who did the separations, but I don't know. If it just feels weird overall.
I don't think so because I mean it was still his muddy
Mhm.
line work and such. Like he was using such thick lines that it really covered up a lot of the detail that help identify characters in panels. Like it's just um yes, I do think that some of the coloring was also at fault here. It was a combination of all of it. Yeah, really. Like those are hard issues to read.
I would agree. Um, yeah, Pat Garrity did the colors for JSA or JLA, sorry, and powers, etc. Yep. Usually a lot brighter. Yeah, it felt this one just felt weird. I mean, those stories just felt weird overall. And I shouldn't be saying that because the follow up issues were all the regular Jim Balent stuff that we had been getting for most of the book. Um, so maybe perhaps. Razor Ramen, good morning to you. Do epics suffer from the same mapping issue, and should they leave event tie-in issues for DC Finest and such like that?
Well, I mean, should they leave event tie-in? The point of it is to collect unbroken runs, and so I don't think that anybody would really want them skipping Catwoman issue 30 or 31 or whatever it is. Yeah, 31. Um, 31 and 32. I think that would be not okay. But then how do you deal with it if it's literally part 4 and part 13 or whatever it is? Um, part 9, part 4 and part 9. Um, there needs to be a compromise. There needs to be like epics do suffer from this as well because, for instance, Operation Zero to
Tolerance.
no,
Yeah.
not Zero Tolerance. Operation Galactic Storm,
Mm-hmm.
a big Avengers story that's like 16 parts long. It goes through like 8 different titles, and the entire thing is in one Avengers Epic collection, the entire story. But you're not going to put the entire story in Captain America and um, all of those other ones as well. So only those few issues are in Captain America, but then they supplement it with a little text box above the cover of the issue saying, here's what happened between these 2 issues, just so you know. And that's what needed to happen here with Catwoman. I don't want them to skip them because they're an important part of Catwoman history, but at the same time, it doesn't make for a very good reading experience the way they've done it
Right.
here.
Because you end up again with Gorilla Grodd, which I think is a bizarre thing on his own, but we'll leave it there. I really do wish that the break wasn't so abrupt between that, and then you go straight into Contagion with no parachute at all. So those are my
Part
thoughts.
4.
Part four after a Gorilla Grodd epic. Um, James Moore says, I do think Marvel does a better job in the epics of including text recaps of events not included than the DC Finest do.
And it's really a matter of how long these stories are, I think, because we did get those Shadow of the Bat issues here, which they could have just done the same thing and given us only part 2 of this story, and with no context. But they decided to put those ones in. I think some of the times they're limited to the 600 page count. They want to fill these books up to as close to 600 pages as possible. So the option is either not including the Contagion issues and having this one be 40 pages shorter, which honestly would be
Mm-hmm.
fine, and then in the next volume having those Contagion issues and giving us the B stories that involve Catwoman, like those little snippets from the other books. They could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is that because they've probably laid out all of these volumes already, and they probably want to make sure that one of the volumes ends at the end of Jim Balent's run, so that the next volume is the start of the Brubaker
Mm-hmm.
era.
Mm-hmm.
with a clean break, and so they have to divide their volumes up evenly. And so this is what we get. We get random issues of Contagion with no context because there's no room for anything more.
Yeah, for sure. And you wonder too if like they also don't want to bother making like a little tiny box or graphic or dedicating, one page. And that's more time, right? Creating whatever that, recap of what they might look like, versus let's just throw those in there, not have to worry about the extra adage at all. So I do think it does add up.
Yeah,
But
but they
no,
really should have had those text recaps.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Gabriel Lopez, Curtis and Dom, looking to catch you live. Have been a Marvel Epic fan, but the Steve C. Finest line really rocks. Do you guys think that Shadow the Bat will be included on the Batman DC Finest? I think
It's a great question.
yeah. Would you like to talk first,
No,
Curtis?
no, no. I want to hear your thoughts.
My thoughts are now that we've seen what they've been doing specifically with these post-crisis Batman and Catwoman collections. I do think that they are probably going to make a completely different line, dedicated to Shadow the Bat, unless it crosses over with another title like we've seen in Catwoman, that features, hey, like these are part of the same story. These are characters that happen to pop up at the same time. We're gonna include those in there. I can't see the overhead just being being the same. Like, oh, we're gonna do one for Shadow the Bat. We're gonna do one for and include that with Batman. I do think that the likelihood of them doing a Shadow of the Bat line would be completely separate, because I don't know. I just don't think that a lot of those stories, being completely, different from what Detective and Batman are doing, and considering that it's a different line, I can see them making a completely separate thing for them. So those are my thoughts.
And the what was the fourth title? The fourth Batman title. There was four going on at one point, right? Um, was it Legends of the Dark
Yeah,
Knight? Is
Legend of
that
the
was
Dark
that a
Knight. Yeah.
title?
Hmm.
Okay, so maybe if they put Legends and Shadow together as its own line, that would be fine. But honestly, they're only separate for a short period of time before they get folded into just mainstream storytelling and crossovers with the other books. So my preference, I think, would just be to include them all. And yes, there are like out of continuity stories, but we already have that with
Hmm.
year one.
Hmm.
Year one and year two in that first DC Finest are out of continuity stories. Um they're not it's their flashback stories. So it's not like they haven't set the precedent already for doing that kind of thing.
Hmm. And you could even also add, like with your argument too, like adding Son of the Demon, thrown in with the Killing Joke, DC Finest. So
Yeah,
I think there is an argument to be made for both, but we'll have to see how they decide to divvy it up, among the
that's right.
points. And last couple of comments, and I want to get to one of my favorites so far. Anyway, yeah, did Kitson ink his own pencils on those Shadow the Bat issues? He did. He is labeled as both. Yeah, he's labeled as the illustrator of the title. And from what I understand and have tried to look up on, it doesn't seem like anybody else had a hand, with the muddy finishes. So it looks like it's mostly Kitson for this one. Second Nightwing Compendium, this month's payday order, hoping for a second Tim Drake Robin in the next catalog. Having that Finest format running alongside, the Compendium line is handy for getting more runs out. I would like to see those two in Finest at some point, though. Because yeah, I mean, we got Batman and Catwoman already. I think it's time to extend the Batman family line a little bit. Oh, we got Batgirl too, so we have a couple. I feel like I have a ton of Atlantis Attacks random issues and Epic collections.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Atlantis Attacks. Yeah, very much an adolescence idea, boy. Of yeah, I mean the art is only going as he gets. um, I'll say more exotic. His indie books Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose is infamous. And I'm still surprised, James, that like that book is still running to this day, and I've seen people like pick it up at my comic store, um, which is not for me to interject on. There's an element here that if folks are picking up Bat family books like Catwoman, they're probably at least aware of what's going on in the core Bat titles anyway. But I
Not
want,
me. I don't know anything about Contagion.
yeah, that's the thing where I'm also like, they label these as standalone. Like if you don't want to read whatever other books in the meantime, like they're all going to be collected in here. Like the completionism sake, I think, is the name of the game for a lot of these finest titles. And so it would have been cool to see the inclusion of some more issues or even just a nice little recap or summary somewhere. But those are just my two thoughts. I hope they have a side war sci-fi horror line, finest line for Batman for all the self-contained stories like Legends, Shadow, and all the other miniseries, one-shots, etc. I don't disagree with you, Nick. And that, I think, concludes us with this taste of Catwoman, or the continuation of it, rather. But on to a different caper. We talked earlier about the Bronze Age, and obviously we just talked about a more modern post-crisis book. But now we are on to the hit surprise, and I think my most anticipated up to this point DC finest, which is none other than Metamorpho. The Element Man, the man with many different powers and many different turns and cases of any, or changing himself into whatever he would wish to be like. We have my boy Rex Mason, who is this Indiana Jones type adventurer, this suave, this handsome looking guy who is looking to marry. Sapphire Stag and call it a night, call it as it may, end his career there. But her father-in-law, or her father, I should say, and Rex Mason's to-be father-in-law says, no, 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 no. I think I need you to do one little more rocky adventure for me. And his girlfriend, Sapphire Stag, is saying like, "Hey, you don't need to do this. I don't want you to die." But he's like, "Hey, if we get the money, we could retire right now." And that adventure leads him into a caper where he ends up finding this mysterious orb of Ra. This weird and mystical looking artificial, whatever you want to call it, treasure that turns him into this exotic superhero. I feel like I've said exotic a billion times. This bizarre superhero called Metamorpho, who changes into anything that he wishes and desires. You got a freakish guy on the outside. You got somebody who is so much different. But I definitely enjoyed this caper. Kurtis, what are your thoughts on this changing of the guard for the Silver Age?
Well, I don't know anything about Metamorpho. He's a character that I've obviously seen, and he's popped up in some cartoons and that kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in the movie that's coming out this month.
Me too.
But going back and like learning about this guy was really great because it is not at all what I expected. Um, and the biggest thing and the thing that I don't like about the Silver Age is how similar everything is, kind of.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. I like the characters. They don't have their own voices. Like Aquaman talks the same as Superboy or whatever. I don't know. That's a bad example, but there isn't enough variety, I think, in the way that each of these titles are being differentiated. But then we get Metamorpho. And Metamorpho is interesting because he's a superhero that doesn't want to be a superhero. And right off the bat there, we get a whole new way of viewing superhero comics amidst all of these, Super Friends type of stories. And this character has his own unique voice because everything he does, all of his actions they come from a place of, well, I don't actually want to be doing this, but I'm being dragged into it, or I feel I have a moral obligation. And that is completely different from any of the other superheroes. And I really appreciate that. I think that adds a tremendous element to the reading experience of these Silver Age stories. And then you, of course, get a lot of the same sort of tropes that you get dragged into with this type of this era. Um, but the fact that Metamorpho is there makes it all better. One interesting thing is that in the early issues, Metamorpho would strictly turn into the elements themselves.
Yep.
And so I feel like the writers and the artists would have to know like a great deal about what all of the elements look like, because most of them are gases and some of them are certain types of metals or whatever. But it's like I don't know if you pull a random element off of the table of elements. It's like, what is argon? I have no idea what that actually looks like. In order to draw it, you'd have to really figure out what it means and what the properties are like in order for them to make sense in the story. And then I think they got tired of that because pretty soon he just started being a shapeshifter.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, now I have slinky legs that are made out of copper. And so he turns into a skateboard and he turns into this and that and whatever. And so I think that made it easier, I think, for the artists and the writers. Easier in that it's just easier to illustrate, easier concepts, but then easier storytelling because now you can make Metamorpho literally do whatever you want him to do. So that probably helped a whole lot.
It's a nice card in the hat for Bob Haney, who was also the creator of the Teen Titans and also somebody who helped Arnold Drake on the Doom Patrol. And
Oh, nice.
so I can see a lot of these similarities in how freakishly outlandish can we get with the concepts of these superheroes to make them completely different from the regular capers and the soap operas that you're getting in other books. And you still get a little bit of some of this, right? I mean, like one of the dominating themes of this entire DC Finest is can Sapphire Stag and Rex Mason actually get together and forget, her father and live a happy life? But even with that adage, there's still enough under the material of okay, can Metamorpho actually get out of the situations that he's in? Can he overcome whatever obstacles Simon might have in order to split him and her daughter or his daughter apart? Can you figure out ways to make the story more interesting than the regular case that we do get for a lot of the Silver Age books? And I find that really, really admirable of Haney just to try and do this science fiction-y caper while keeping true to the form at the time. And that's, I think, what makes this book stand out on its own is, yes, you do get the Silver Age cape stuff, but it's also added on with so many different elements, no pun intended, in terms of storytelling and in terms of the stuff that it just has, that I find this one of the stronger Silver Age reads that I've read, if not the strongest one I've read. So it gets an A+ for me.
Yeah, I think that now that you mentioned his work with Doom Patrol, it's like, yeah, this fits in with the Doom Patrol family. This feels very much like that corner of the DC universe. There's a one crossover episode with the Metal Men in
Mhm.
here, and that
Yeah.
feels like that as well. It's like so
Mm.
there's this side of the DC universe that includes these kind of kooky characters that don't fit the Justice League mold. I like that Justice League issue
Hmm.
where they extend an invitation to Metamorpho, and it's like, dude, I don't even want to be me, so I'm not gonna join your group. And I thought that was great. A really fun issue. It wasn't the standard like there's a misunderstanding. They think
Hmm.
Metamorpho is a bad guy, so they
Right.
fight him first, and then
Hmm.
they become friends after. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they recognize already that he's a hero and he's doing the right
Hmm.
thing. Um, One thing I want to mention is the artwork.
Yeah.
I really like this artist. Of course, Ramona Fradon is excellent, and I've loved everything that I've seen her do so far. But she doesn't stay on this book very long, which
No.
I was kind of bummed about. She's only on for 8 or 9 issues or so, and then she jumps off, and and she's replaced by Sal Trapani, whom I don't know very much at all. He's not a name that I'm familiar with, but he is able to pick up Ramona's style perfectly,
Hmm.
and he continues on and adds his own little flair and such. But he adds a lot to the book. And one of the things that I like about what he does is that he starts doing different panel layouts.
Yeah.
So he's not strictly squares and like tiers of squares.
Hmm.
He'll do panels at an angle, or he'll do trapezoids and panels that are overlapping each
Yeah.
other and such. And then adds a different element to the story, and that's a lot of the last half of this book is very different. I also feel like Sal Trapani has a lot of Will Eisner influence in his work that Ramona didn't. There's one page in particular that I want to point out. Like a lot of these, if you're familiar with the spirit and what the spirit looks like, a lot of this stuff, the faces, the poses, and such, look very, very Will Eisner. And I didn't look it up to see if he worked with Will Eisner at all, but I'm guessing that it was a big influence just on the way that he was writing or he was drawing. It looks very, very similar.
No, for sure and for certain. I read somewhere that apparently Ramona Fradon was or Bob Haney convinced Ramona to temporarily leave maternity leave to create Metamorpho with him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I find is so. I'm assuming that because of motherhood, Ramona had to step back and focus
Okay.
on other things. But nonetheless, I agree with you on Sal, because it feels different than your regular stereotypical box, longer box, shorter box. Maybe a little panel where the guy, like, the villain is big, or the thing they have to fight is big, and then move on. There's one particular story I really like, and it was the return of some of a recurring character in Metamorpho lore, who is Element Girl, a girl who is shunned away by Rex, because Rex is like, well, I'm not in love with you. I've already loved with somebody else, even though yes, they are similar. They say no, but she returns. Sal draws a really, really nice, at least for the first part of issue 13, I think, of Metamorpho, where it's a football issue. And the sports fan in me, who's been really happy with a lot of these, because there's a lot of baseball and some other sports which were big in America at the time going on. I think Sal perfectly displayed how a 60s football game would feel like, and I find that really interesting. Like, he actually like dug in and said, hey, like, oh, this there's this big quarterback star, his name is Johnny Unitas. Puts them in, or mentions them in one of the panels. There is a lot of stuff to love about the way that he uses the floating heads, and some of the way that he draw, like, the atmosphere of it all. Even detailing with the backgrounds and the kookiness of everything that you could expect from the wildest science fiction panels of this time. It is
No,
absolutely.
look at all the Kirby crackle on this page.
It's so
Amazing.
marvelous.
It's like so very it looks like it's influenced by both Kirby and
Mhm.
Ditko at the same time.
It indeed does. And that's what I love about this particular. Like, you not only have strong writing, but you also have art that is very, very strong from beginning to end. And I'm really happy with the direction of it all in this book. It's also not just like they're all one-offs. There's still like a somewhat ongoing story, even with a lot of the Silver Age structure of can we just put them in one story and then just move on and go to the rest, because again, like, characters come back in later issues, and we do have some guest stars that pop up in here. You have a couple of fairly fun Brave and the Bold team ups that I didn't expect, because usually Brave and the Bold team ups I'm expecting, Batman or Superman to show up, but you get introduced to other characters that you might not know about, and I really, really happen to enjoy those as well. So overall, I can't say, I don't know if I really have any negativity for this, but I mean, this was a book that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I was definitely interested in it because Al Ewing had been writing a Metamorpho book for the DC All In initiative, and I said, oh, I wonder how it's like in the, because it felt very Silver Agey, and I can see now where Al gets a lot of his influence from with this particular book. So those are my ending thoughts on
Awesome.
on Metamorpho, and let's go ahead and before we run into that, oh, also too, there is a issue where Batman pops up in the back. It is issue 60 or 101, I should say, Brave and the Bold. Rest in peace to a fellow character, whatever that might be. And it's all drawn. If my mind is correct, it is. It looks, yeah, looks like Jim Aparo. Well done stuff. But let's go ahead and move alongside to our folks and friends in the chat. Yeah, looking forward to the Invisibles Compendium, going to be a monster. Hey, I do find it interesting. I got my first compendium a couple of weeks ago with the Superman Adventures one, and it felt so different than holding up a regular, thinner, thicker-ish trade paperback. Maybe that is just like the part of me. I have never been. I'm always scared of the spines breaking on those, so that's why I haven't bothered buying one. But let me know how you think about it, Ultra Mega Nicola. I actually do really like Invisibles. Yeah, Taro is still running, James. It's crazy. If Rex Mason had carried a bullwhip, he'd have been fine.
Right.
Maybe if he had a hat shaped like the one Indy Jones had one too, but it is what it is. I wish Firestorm was in the Superman movie so they would release a DC Finest Firestorm line. Well, never say never, JV. I think there is a good shot we might get it at some point. I'm waiting for my Metamorpho Finest to arrive, but I had the showcase volume and I love this stuff. It's got a Silver Age Marvel vibe, but a little bit more surreal and wacky. Afternoon, Kurtis and Dom. Hope you're both doing well. Hope you're doing well too, Orlando. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, my friend. I think this and Doom Patrol are some of the best Silver Age DC ongoings. And hey, like, both of them got Bob Hayden's name on it. Maybe there's a method to the madness to whatever he works on, is what I'm noticing. Getting the Firestorm. Yeah, hopefully we can get a Firestorm book of announcements for next year. Maybe in 2027. We shall see. And yeah, like, a lot of people have been wanting it. Looking forward to the Super Friends Finest for a whole lot of Ramona Freydon. I think they're also, if I may, let me see, they added an issue there. Super Friends DC Finest. It is collecting the Aquateers Meet the Super Friends mini comic as well, on top of the 26 issues.
Cool.
So, yeah, more to that. I love it. Yeah. I think sales fell a bit when Ramona left in the book, sadly, which is unfortunate to see. But considering that we got 17 issues at least of this, and in Metamorpho, that's better than Peacemaker, right?
This is the full series then?
It might be.
The full run?
I'm going to look that up because I am not certain. Let me do some research on the fly. Metamorpho.
Because it's it gets to issue 17 is 1968, and then the last Brave and the Bold jumps to 1972.
Yep, this is just the 17 issues, and he doesn't get.
That's cool. This is a one and done volume then.
Yeah.
There's probably more after this, but if you just want the whole original first series, it's all in this one book. That's awesome.
Indeed, and Metamorpho would not get another series until, believe it or not, Mark Waid in 1993.
Oh, poor guy.
I know. But he does let he did tell me that Metamorpho is one of his favorite characters. So, there's something there. If only Metamorpho could become adamantium, he would be unstoppable. You know what? I would love to see a DC Marvel crossover between Metamorpho and Wolverine. The best there ever will be. Um,
Yeah, let's see how that happens.
does this include the 70s first issue special Metamorpho story?
No, the only thing from the 70s is the Brave and the
Hmm.
Bold issue.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say it doesn't.
I think we will probably get, if they ever continue on to the next, because I'm assuming that we might get the. I mean, Mark Waid wrote it. I mean, Mark Waid is on fire right now at DC. It seems like he's writing a lot and everything. I would bet that we could get a future Metamorpho volume. So we shall see. Sal, Trip something. I'm tripping on his last name.
Mhm.
Trapani, Trapini,
Trapani, yeah, Sal Trapani.
Sal Trapani, was apparently Dick Giordano's brother-in-law.
Ah, nice.
That is really interesting. Hey guys, has anything Swamp Thing been announced for DC Finest? Not yet, but we shall see. First issue special 3 was Metamorpho. Not in this one, but I guarantee you they will probably collect it in future. For you want me? You know what? Let me see. First issue special numero trace. Yeah, next volume because it is 3 years out of the last issue that is collected in here. Yeah, full run. JP Taylor says they are really, really enjoying the show. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Let me see if I can, and I don't know if I have any other running thoughts or non-spoilery thoughts, anyways, of Metamorpho Kurtis, unless you would like to add something.
No, I'm good. I was just looking up first issue special Metamorpho. There's probably a bunch of different oh yeah, 1993 he had, I don't know if it's a one shot or something.
Yeah, it's the 4 issue Mark Waid series.
That's the Mark Waid series?
Mm-hmm.
93. Okay. Um yeah, I'm sure there are guest stars and probably pops up in stories here or there. You could probably make a whole volume of stuff that is through the 70s and 80s. That would be my guess.
I would assume that. And hey, I mean, there's still a lot more Brave and the Bold that they haven't collected. It is really nice to see them putting one for Metamorpho, and at some point, I would like to see them do the Outsiders, on which he joins in 2003. That is pretty much my only connection with Metamorpho, or reading him in any one of these comic series. And then he appeared in Mark Waid's Batman Superman World's Finest for an issue as well. So he has been, it seems like, in plenty of different places. Let me go ahead and see because we are now in the brand new catalog of all of these DC books. I am trying to see if we have the presentation set for.
Oh, Metamorpho, sorry.
Go ahead.
Metamorpho has a whole bunch of backup stories in Action Comics and World's Finest Comics, so they can include those.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a character in The Outsiders in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
and also Justice League International. So I bet if there are any specific like character development issues of those titles, they could probably stick those in there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then yeah, that brings us up to that miniseries.
Yes, I believe you are correct. But yes, let's go ahead and run over some of the books that are coming out next month as we bring it for the club. Let's go ahead and actually let's take out these couple of chats first. There are a bunch of Metamorpho backup stories of books like World's Finest that need collecting, more than enough for a second volume. So yeah,
There you go. Yep.
73 to 93. Let's make it happen. Yeah, he did definitely play a big role in Batman and the Outsiders. And he also had a bunch of backups, not only in that, but Action Comics and Jimmy.
I should have read the comments. Everyone is saying what I was just looking up.
Thank you guys for helping us map out the second volume. But speaking of a couple of more volumes, we are getting some other volumes of books that we already have had collections of for characters that we have read already. First of which is the Bronze Age Wonder Woman, The Legend of Wonder Woman, right before Crisis on Infinite Earths hit. And we had the George Perez reboot of Wonder Woman specifically. This is going to collect issues 306 through 29 of Wonder Woman, which apparently has Kurt Busiek writing in there, early Kurt Busiek. DC Comics presents 76, the Blue Devil issue number 10, and the Legend of Wonder Woman issues 1 through 4.
The cover of this is kind of a little bit misleading. While it is the artwork that's seen through that miniseries, it's not what the rest of the book looked like. And I saw some preview art from some of the other pages, and it looks pretty exciting. So, and I like Trina Robbins. I think she's great too. So we'll have to see. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it'll be really good.
Me as well. The next book that we have on the list is the second volume of I think the All-Star comic. I think it's 13 through 24. But nonetheless, we do have Justice Society of America. Very good, Kurtis. The Plunder of the Psycho Pirate. It is coming out on the 8th of July. So the second week of the month will take us to the Capers of the Society.
Yeah, the first volume, while it was good, it was a really hard read because it's very dense and full of that golden age feel to it. So we'll see how this one unfolds.
Yes, indeed. And last, certainly not least, we do have science fiction, the Gorilla World, collecting issues 183 to 196 of Action Comics, Strange Adventures 35 to 48, and Mystery in Space 16 through 22. A lot of these stories for the first time being collected in something that I would never have imagined to be quite an odd collection, but I will definitely be reading, and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one immensely. I think it's going to be great. It's not all gorillas. Gorillas are just one story in this book, but there's going to be a lot of like space adventures, space rangers, and that kind of stuff. Um, really looking forward to this one. This is probably my most anticipated for this month.
Oh man, yeah, no, it's definitely a big plus for me as well. I'm going to get to a couple more comments, and I think we can close this edition of Finest Fridays out. And if I can change this, thank you, OBS. All right, we are back to the regular Scarinio. Yes, so yeah, JSA, science fiction, and Wonder Woman in July. And that I wonder if some of Rex's stories, like his miniseries, will be in an Outsiders run. I would love to see them do an Outsiders DC Finest, whether it's the 80s stuff, 2000 stuff. I know that it's not as big of an audience, but Batman and Nightwing are the leads on some of those teams. So it might be enough for somebody to say, hey, there's somebody that I notice who's in it. So that is the hope. And yes, people are excited for Trina Robbins and Bronze Age Wonder. I do like Trina Robbins a lot, so I will definitely be on the lookout for that. Have they changed the title? My understanding for all three is that JSA is still the Plunder of the Psycho Pirates, according to Lunar Distribution. It's been the same, so no changes from my understanding on this point. And yes, DC is obsessed about gorillas, aren't they?
I love it. I love that they're obsessed with gorillas.
I do too.
I didn't see any gorillas in this Metamorpho book. Did you?
I did not. I don't. We got some weird. We got plastic. We got tin, and we got metal. We got platinum in. We saw Doc Magnus.
No gorillas.
No gorillas. You know what, Bob? I think Bob was probably like, man, we're using Gorilla Grodd and Flash. I don't know if we can do more gorillas. But regardless.
Well, and also Java is kind of a gorilla type of a character.
Mm-hmm. He definitely is. So I think you know what, I would argue Simon kind of is too, but you know what, I will say one last thing on Metamorpho. My introduction to Simon Stagg, believe it or not, was in the Batman Arkham games. Um, and I thought he was a Batman villain until I actually read the comics. So there
Nice.
is an admittance from me there. But nonetheless, I want to thank everybody who hung out with us on this Friday morning. We are absolutely blessed to have all of you guys here, whether you are with us live or if you are watching us on the replay. It does mean the world to me that you guys are taking time out of your lives. I know we're all busy, but just to talk to us and listen to us talking is already a blessing for me. And yeah, Java is halfway to being a gorilla. And yes, maybe Captain Comet will be on a future one, Nick. I would not rule that out entirely. But as always, not only a thank you to you folks, but Kurtis, thank you once again for being such a wonderful partner and co-host with me on these as always. It's been, I think, yeah, 8, 9 months. I think we're like 3/4 of a year through with all of these streams. So almost there to a
Right.
year.
Yeah, that's great. Always happy to be here. I look forward to it every month. And it's forcing me to read all of these DC Finest at an accelerated pace, which is great. It's better than doing it with the Epic collections.
For sure, indeed. But yes, if you haven't yet, please hit the like button. It helps me, helps the show, and it helps get out this content to you guys, and also lets YouTube know again that these books exist and that they are definitely worth reading and catching up on. But that is it for me. I'm Dom of X. Check me out over comicreleases.com and also on this channel, also on Near Mint and like a billion other places. But that's besides the point. Please take care, stay safe, and have a great day wherever you are. Right.